Salvete! This week we will be talking about the verb to be. In Chapter 6, the irregular verb sum is introduced. This verb does not fit into any of the conjugations because it's just very irregular. You have to memorize the 6 forms of the verb to be, as you see them here. Sum, es, est, sumus, estis, sunt. Notice that the first person ending for that means I in this situation is not an O, it's an M. But the rest of the personal endings on the verb to be are the same that you're used to. The S for you, the T for he, she, or it, and the mus for we, the tis for you plural, and the nt for they. But for I, the O has turned into an M. So the word that means I am is sum, S-U-M, sum. Es means you are, est, he, she, or it is, sumus, we are, estis, you plural are, and sunt, they are. The 4 principal parts that you need to memorize are sum, esse, fui, futurum. Since the stem is not regular, it's called an irregular verb, and so these forms just need to be memorized. Notice that the verb to be, the Latin form of to be, is a very irregular infinitive also. ESSE means to be, and you will see this appear in sentences. For example, after a verb such as I ought, or I am able, I ought to be good, or something like that. So you will notice occasionally the little word ESSE, esse. The way it's pronounced is simply esse. Remember also that the verb sum is a linking verb. And this is very important to keep in mind. Whenever a noun or adjective falls after a linking verb, in both English and in Latin, it's not considered a direct object. Instead, this word is a predicate nominative. So the nominative case is mostly used for the subject, but this is the one other situation in which you're going to use the nominative case on a noun, and that's when it's following a linking verb. All right, now let's look at the new vocabulary for Chapter 6. You need to memorize the 4 principal parts of the verb to be, sum, esse, fui, futurum. Sum, esse, fui, futurum. The first 2 principal parts, of course, are the ones that you're going to need this year. But the others will be coming in and becoming important much later. The first declension nouns that we're learning this week are insula, island, provincia, province, littera, letter, rosa, flower or rose, scena, scene, persona, which means personality, character, or mask. Most of the time you're going to be using this word to mean a personality or a character. Persona. It is used in English in the same way that we use it in Latin. In other words, it's a Latin word that has come into our language and means the same thing in Latin and in English. Poeta, agricola, and nauta are your 3 words from the first declension that are actually masculine. So almost all other first declension nouns are considered feminine, but these 3 words are irregular and considered masculine, even though they use the feminine a endings. So when you put an adjective with them, that adjective will need to use the second declension us endings. And the 2 adverbs that we're introducing this week are sepe, sepa, often, and semper, always. So one more time through. Insula, island, provincia, province, littera, letter, rosa, rose or flower, scena, scene, persona, personality, poeta, poet, agricola, farmer, nauta, sailor, and sepe means often, semper means always. So now we will look at our practicum. And remember the rule for adjectives. Adjectives must agree with their noun in case, number, and gender. Often this means that they will match the ending on the noun exactly, but sometimes there are exceptions to this. These three nouns below are nouns of the first declension that are seemingly out of place in this word family, because most of the first declension nouns are feminine. So when these nouns have an adjective on them, they're not going to look the same as the noun, because these nouns are masculine in disguise. Now you should pause the recording and see what you can do. So how did you do? Number 1 is the farmer is good. Number 2, the sailors are greedy. Number 3, the poet is not evil or not bad. Look at number 4 now. This one could be expressed, they are many roses. But with the linking verb, you can express it as there are. This is a very acceptable translation. In addition to they, you can say there are. And when it's singular, est, sometimes it can be there is instead of it is, because that sounds better in English. So keep that in mind. And the last one is the personality or the character is evil. Now let's look at the conversation example. This is how you say, in Latin, this is how you say, how are you? Quid agis discipuli, or quid agis discipula. So if it's a boy, you say discipule. That's the irregular vocative for a masculine singular word, the E. And then if it's a girl, you say quid agis discipula. The answer to that is ago optime. I am doing the greatest. I'm doing the best. So ago is their all-purpose verb, sort of like our word doing. I'm doing great. You know, that's what it's saying. You've seen that quid means what, or you will learn, if you haven't learned already, that quid means what. And so their way of saying how are you was to say what are you doing? Sort of strange, huh? But that's the way languages are. They have different ways of expressing things. So quid agis, ago optime, ago bene. If you just want to say you're so-so, you say ago satis bene. And you don't always have to repeat the verb ago. In this case, when you answer, you can just say pessime, worst, the worst, if you're really doing poorly. But hopefully you'll always be saying optime. Now, if you want to express how you're feeling with an adjective, note these words up above are the adverbs that go with a verb such as ago. But if you want to say, I am joyful, or I am blessed, something like that, you would say sum laeta, or sum defessa if you're exhausted. These two examples are joyful and tired. And so there you have it, another addition to your conversational Latin. Do try to use some of these sayings and snippets of conversation whenever you get a chance. So this chapter doesn't have anything too difficult in it. Your main challenge is simply to memorize the forms of the verb to be, and remember that a word that follows the verb to be is going to be in the nominative case. So keep that in mind. Let's chant these forms one more time. Sum es est, sumus estis sunt. Sum es est, sumus estis sunt. Be able to fill those out in a chart. And remember that sum means I am, es, you are, est. He, she, or it is, or sometimes there is. Sumus, we are. Estus, you are. Sunt, they are. And sometimes this one can be interpreted as there are. And so I will see you next week when we go over chapter 7.